Kaivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtatushita Shishiman Hisavan Grishla A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtatushita Shishiman His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the Sum of Devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Sum of Devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Sum of Devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Shift Control Z.
Shift Command?
Shift Command Z or Shift Control Z.
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. So, Om Jnanatimandasya Gnanjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Putale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavam Shta Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shivashakan Vitam Shta. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpati Opisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vansha Kapatubhya Kripasunabhya Vachapatita Nam Pamnebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Patuleshmate Bhakti Vakasa Swamin Itinamane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Patuleshmate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Itinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pisharane Nirvashesha Shunavari Pashchati Deshatarane Bhuter Mahadbiri Mafpur Puror Vibor Nirmaya Shitiyada Musha Purishaha Bunk Degunan Shodasha Shodasatmaka So Lang Krishishta Bhagavan Vashamsime. So, let me see if I can make this nicer. Okay. So today is two important festivals or events, I guess you could say. It's Sri Vishwarup Mahotsava. It's the day Sri Vishwarup, the older brother of Lord Chaitanya, took sannyas. And it's also the day Srila Prabhupada took sannyas. So I'll be speaking on these two. So first, I just wanted to read primarily from Chaitanya Bhagavat. There's a chapter entitled describing Vishwarup's acceptance of sannyas, and I'm just selecting a short section here. But Vishwarup, he was the older brother of Nimai at the time, Lord Chaitanya in his youth, and from his birth, he was detachment was seen in him. He was never attached to the material world. The idea of sense gratification never took place in his mind. Of course, granted, he's Balaram himself. Vishwarup is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So naturally, that's so. But he displayed the pastime of, even in so-called youth, of renunciation. And simultaneously, he was also very scholarly. He would go to Advaita Acharya's house, so at Advaita Acharya's house, all the Vaishnavas would then gather. At the time in Navadvip, it was very atheistic, the atmosphere. And so, Vaishnavas were more or less ridiculed and persecuted throughout Navadvip. And they were made fun of, they were decried, this and that. And so the Vaishnavas at the time in Navadvip, they privately met at that time at Advaita Acharya's house to hear and discuss, chant, dance, and sing about Krishna. And generally, just as a closed-door affair, more or less, it wasn't like public knowledge. Some people did have knowledge of it, and they would ridicule them, but like in this way, the Vaishnavas would keep themselves kind of aloof to avoid, actually, for the real purpose is to protect others from overtly criticizing them, to protect them from making offenses. And so Vishwarup, he would go there regularly to this assembly of Vaishnavas and hear the discussions about Lord Krishna, hear the kirtans, etc., like this. And everybody at that assembly, they became enamored by Vishwarup because he's Balaram himself. He was so attached to the assembly that he neglected his studies, and when he would basically live there more or less. As a formality, he would go home to take meals and sleep. But practically his whole days were spent in Advaita Acharya's house. And so, Shachimata, Vishwarup's mother, Lord Chaitanya's mother, she became concerned, and particularly one day that Vishwarup was sent, it was time for the evening meal, in other words, and so Vishwarup wasn't coming. And so Shachimata sent Lord Chaitanya Nimai Pandit to go fetch, I don't know if he was Pandit at that time, but she sent Nimai to go fetch Vishwarup from Advaita Acharya's house. And so Nimai went there, and then all the assembled Vaishnavas, they were astounded to see the very beautiful form of Nimai in that assembly, because everybody there is hearing and chanting about Krishna, and Nimai is Krishna himself, who has accepted a golden complexion. So anyway, in this way, Nimai went there to fetch Vishwarup back, and like this. And there's a description, and that's where basically this picks up. Vishwarup returned home simply out of formality. Then, as soon as possible, he returned to Advaita's house. The desire, this is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, by the way, the desire for material enjoyment never appeared in the mind of Vishwarup. He constantly remained in the ecstasy of chanting Krishna's names. Even when he was at home, he never engaged in household activities. Rather, he would always stay in the temple room. When his mother and father spoke of arranging his marriage, Vishwarup felt great mental pain. Vishwarup thought to himself, I will leave home and go to the forest. The heart of the Lord is known only to the Lord. Thus, after a few days, Vishwarup left to take sannyas. He then became known throughout the world as Sri Shankararanya. As he traversed the path of devotional service to Lord Krishna, he became celebrated as the topmost Vaishnava. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he has a commentary here explaining a little bit more. Vishwarup accepted sannyas in the Sri Shankara Sampradaya, which was practically at that time the only Sampradaya. There were others, I believe, but at least in the Gaudiya line, there was no such sannyas at that time. As Srila Prabhupada explains in Chaitanya Charitamrita, sannyas at that time meant ekadanda sannyas, or Mayavad sannyas taken in the Shankara Sampradaya. Just as Lord Chaitanya accepted sannyas, Vishwarup also accepted sannyas in the Shankara Sampradaya. And he became famous by the name Sri Shankararanya. At that time, there were 10 names for sannyasis being used in the Shankara Sampradaya. The name Aranya is one of those 10 names. These 10 names for sannyasis were previously used in the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya. After these Vishnu Swami sannyasis had a quarrel, he goes on like this. After traveling throughout the country, Sri Shankararanya arrived at Pandapura in the district of Sholapur, near Bombay, and took samadhi, meaning he left his body, in other words. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he doesn't leave his body, but he wound up his pastime, so to say. And that's what it means, samadhi, on the bank of the Bhima River. It is said that Sri Shankararanya, the king of sannyasis, entered the deity of Sri Vithalanath or Sri Vitobha, While traveling to South India many years later, in 1511, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Pandharpur and heard from Sri Rangapuri about Vishwarup's disappearance. At that time, Pandharpur was a famous place of pilgrimage and populated by many sadhus and Vaishnavas. I believe he has another commentary describing it. I forget, but this. So the Lord Chaitanya, much later in his Leela, he went on. He took his tour of South India, his South Indian preaching tour. Initially, when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, well, a few things happened, but more or less, he ended up going to Jagannath Puri. He wanted to go to Vrindavan, but he was bewildered by Nityananda Prabhu, who told him that the Ganges was the Yamuna, and then they wound back up at the Dvitacharya's house, and then to please his mother, he decided to go on the order of his mother to Jagannath Puri, so that he would remain somewhat nearby and she would get news of Lord Chaitanya's activities. And so the first time he went to Jagannath Puri, the incidents there with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, how Lord Chaitanya went in the temple, he fainted, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he took care of him, spoke Vedanta, etc. And then shortly after that, Lord Chaitanya left for South India to begin his tour from Jagannath Puri on the plea of looking for his brother, actually. And it's described here, this is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is saying here. Lord Chaitanya heard from Sri Rangapuri about Sri Vishwarup's disappearance. So superficially, internally, we understand he left for South India for so many reasons, primarily to preach the cult of devotional service himself, Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga. But superficially, externally, he accepted the reason of looking for his brother. Actually, he knew his brother departed from the very beginning, but it was simply out of formality. So, Vishwarup's departure from home left Sachi and Jagannath Mishra grief-stricken. Sri Gauranga cried loudly along with his family members and eventually fell unconscious out of separation from his brother. I am unable to describe their feelings of separation, by which Jagannath Mishra's entire house became inundated with crying. Understanding that Vishwarup had taken sannyas, Advaita and the other devotees began weeping. And this commentary, Srila Bhakti is long, so I'll summarize it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he explains this crying is not the crying of Grihastha householders, the tears of them. Rather, the crying of the devotees and sages are tears of ecstasy, and the two can't be equated. So the devotees were crying, but they're crying out of joy and bliss. Everyone in Nadia who heard about the incident, whether ordinary or exalted devotee, all felt unhappy. Jagannath Mishra and Shachideva were both heartbroken and continually cried out, Vishwarup, Vishwarup. Sri Mishra was overwhelmed with lamentation for his son, so his friends and relatives all tried to pacify him. Dear Mishra, please control yourself. Do not feel sad, for that great personality has delivered all of us. When someone takes sannyas, millions of family members are promoted to Vaikuntha. Your son has perfected his education by this act. Therefore, it is befitting for you to feel even more happy than before. Saying this, they all held the hands and feet of Jagannath Mishra. Your son Vishwampara is the ornament of your dynasty. He will eradicate all your suffering. If one has such a son as him, what is the need for millions of sons? In this way, all of Jagannath Mishra's friends tried to pacify him, but his distress remained unmitigated. Of somehow or other, he regained his composure. As soon as he remembered Vishwarup's qualities, he again lost his patience. It's very heartbreaking, actually. Sri Mishra said, I have no reason to believe that this son will remain at home. Which actually was the case. It's described later in Chaitanya Bhagavat. They were feeling that Lord Chaitanya is trying to take sannyas, and they're trying to, in so many different ways, to induce Lord Chaitanya, Nimai, to remain at home. I think the chapter after this is Lord Chaitanya's marriage with Lakshmi Priya, the first wife. So immediately after Vishwarup takes sannyas, what do Shachimata and Jagannath Mishra do? They get Lord Chaitanya married so that he'll remain at home. Krishna gave me his son, and then he took him away. Whatever Krishna desires, that is what will happen. Independent of you, the living entities have no power whatsoever. Therefore, O Krishna, I'm surrendering my body and senses to you. In this way, the most sober Jagannath Mishra gradually controlled his mind through the process of jnana. That is the story of how Vishwarup, who is non-different from Nitya, and then the Swarup left home. So the chapter continues like that, but there's several incidents that are important with this. We see it's mentioned that Jagannath Mishra's friends consoling him, they told him that because your son has taken sannyas, this is the perfection of all his education. You should be elated that this has happened. The sannyas ashram, it's all the preparation that Vishwarup went through his childhood, and that others, at least within the Varnashram system, the Grahastha ashram and Vanaprastha ashram, all of them aim at this sannyas ashram, the ultimate ashram. And so many times Srila Prabhupada explained that all the other lower ashrams are stepping stones on the path of taking sannyas. Formerly, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, one may not take sannyas, but at least internally, one's resolution should be that of a sannyasi, even if he's living in a grahastha situation, a vanaprastha situation. In situations where, based upon individual, so many different things can happen, individual circumstances, one may not necessarily take sannyas. And actually, practically, if you see how many people in Vaishnava society actually take sannyas, it's a very, very few portion. At least within modern contemporary ISKCON society, there are very few devotees who are actually, most devotees, the Varnashram system isn't so strictly practiced. So therefore you have devotees, Grahasthas obviously are there, but brahmacharis, it's so few. There's so many devotees who aren't in any sort of ashram. Vanaprasthas, there are people who call themselves Vanaprasthas, but practically we see it's very rare for somebody to leave their wife and not necessarily go to the forest. Go to the forest in Srila Prabhupada's mission means engage full-time in temple activities like that. And then what to speak of those who take sannyas? Practically, you can count the sannyas, maybe not count, but there are no more, around 100 or so at least within the ISKCON society. And even within ISKCON, sannyas is more prominent than other sampradayas, which it's generally not necessarily discouraged, but it's more difficult, so to say. Just as during Srila Prabhupada's time, he gave so many battlefield commissions, he called them, to his brahmachari disciples, immediately promoting them at the age of 25 or so from brahmachari to sannyasi. And they've only been in Krishna consciousness for a few years. There's other sampradayas, particularly Sri Sampradaya, where you have to go through the whole brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and then you take sannyas. Otherwise, just that jumping isn't necessarily encouraged. So, the sannyasa ashram is the crest jewel of all the other ashrams, Srila Prabhupada writes. And it's, the internal resolution may be there. But as I was speaking, so that internal resolution, that's the most important thing. One may not necessarily carry a danda or dressed in saffron. One may do so, but internally, if he's not renounced, then his sannyas is of no value. Mayavadis also take sannyas, but the sannyas sends them to hell, actually. So, like this is just a few intricacies of that, and this pastime that's going on here. And so, significantly too, and more, I guess you could say, everything's relevant to us, but especially relevant to us is today is the day that Srila Prabhupada took sannyas. So, I wanted to read a little bit from, I don't know how much we'll see, from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, because it seemed like some devotees weren't fully acquainted with the life of Srila Prabhupada. I just wanted to, often these days, just kind of mentioned that today, Vishwarup Mahotsava, know what I actually, until you read Chaitanya Bhagavat, you don't actually know what kind of goes. It's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita briefly, and then unless you've read Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita or heard memories of his disciples, there's not so much information about Srila Prabhupada, or devotees may or may not know. So Srila Prabhupada, I'll give a big summarization of the context of his acceptance of sannyas. So Srila Prabhupada was residing, obviously, there's so many things, the whole book is there. He had gone through householder life, and he had left householder life with the famous incident of his wife trading his Bhagavatam set for tea biscuits. At that moment, Srila Prabhupada left home. He took Vanaprastha, formally or informally. He never returned. And then so many things happened from then, trying to cooperate with God brothers to his preaching in Jhansi, etc. The League of Devotees and the eventual collapse of that because of the governor's wife, forcibly taking over the property more or less. And then Srila Prabhupada went to Vrindavan. And so it's 1958, 1959, the date will come. Srila Prabhupada is residing in Vrindavan. And he's there, and he's doing some writing. At this point, he hadn't begun his translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was doing some writing, mainly we see Back to Godhead. He was writing Back to Godhead articles, and I don't know if Easy Journey was written at that point. Shortly thereafter, after taking seance, he authored one small booklet, Message of Godhead, which the BBT now prints. So Srila Prabhupada was residing in Vrindavan with an aim to preach, and he had recently written this. Oh, it's very small.
Command, Shift, plus.
Is that okay? Or bigger?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So, I've lost. Okay. So most of us, or maybe a few of us, have read this Vrindavan Bhajana, this poem Srila Prabhupada wrote regarding the state, more or less, of the preaching mission of his spiritual master, the state of affairs in Vrindavan, and the unfortunate collapse of the Gaudiya mission. And he was, in so many different ways, it's very beautiful. And particularly, Vrindavan Bhajan, it's almost, not ironically, but it gives a real idea of what is Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada entitled it Vrindavan Bhajan, but if you read that poem, actually the whole thing is towards preaching. It's a call towards preaching, and it's a call towards action, activity, outgoing preaching activities in Lord Chaitanya's movement. That is the Vrindavan Bhajan of Srila Prabhupada. So this was kind of Srila Prabhupada's mood. He was in Vrindavan wanting to get something going. He had tried to get something going. Nothing seemed to be starting. His godbrothers were kind of more or less difficult to work with. They had their own mutts, their own institutions, dozens of them, and each one was doing their own different thing. And meanwhile, Srila Prabhupada is trying to do something practical for the preaching mission. So, and this is the context. One night, most of us have heard about this, one night Abhay had a striking dream. The same dream he had several times before during his days as a householder. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati appeared, just as Abhay had known him, the tall, scholarly sannyasi, coming directly from the spiritual world, from Krishna's personal entourage. He called to Abhay and indicated that he should follow. Repeatedly he called in motion. He was asking Abhay to take sannyas. Come, he urged, become a sannyasi. So Srila Prabhupada multiple times had this dream. And again, he's having it, of his spiritual master calling him in a dream to take sannyas. And you hear conversations of Srila Prabhupada recounting this. And initially, he didn't assign so much importance to it, but again, it kept reoccurring. And then he realized my spiritual master wants me to take sannyas. So, continuing, Abhay awoke in a state of wonder. He thought of this instruction as another feature of the original instruction Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had given him at their first meeting in Calcutta. The same instruction that his spiritual master, there we go, had later solidified in a letter, become an English preacher and spread Krishna consciousness throughout the Western world. Sannyas was for that end. Otherwise, why would its spiritual master have asked him to accept it? Abhay reasoned that his spiritual master was saying, now take sannyas and you will actually be able to accomplish this mission. Formerly, the time was not right. And so, Satsvarup Maharaj, he gives elaboration on this, which I would just kind of like sum up in my own words. So Srila Prabhupada, if you see Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers who started their own institution, their own mutt, they were sannyasis, more or less. Because they had because they were in the ashram of sannyas, they had influence, they were able to garner respect, power, prestige, all these things. Manpower, capital, particularly, and they were able to do something, form something. And so with the same idea, Srila Prabhupada considered that taking sannyas means access to all these things, and it allows a more broader scope of preaching activities. Particularly, his godbrothers were looking upon him as Still, they were knowing him. I mean, of course, he was given the honorary title of Bhaktivedanta, but they just still more or less knew him as Abhay Prabhu. He didn't, at this point, it was residing in Vrindavan, but he wasn't one of the big sannyasis, the big, you could say, heirs of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta at this point. So contextually, within the breakup of the Gaudiya mission, at this point, Srila Prabhupada didn't have so much prominence, but the acceptance of sannyas will give him prominence. At least within India. Of course, in the West, sannyas, brahmachari, anything, people don't assign any value, but at least in this context. So, he's approaching for sannyas. So, let's see. So, no other one. First. Okay, so the acceptance of sannyas. So yeah, Satsuru Maharaj is describing, however, if a person could actually follow the rules, especially if he had to spread the Sankirtan mission, sannyas was necessary. So regarding who to take sannyas from, Abhay first had to approach one of his godbrothers for permission, because to take sannyas, unless you're Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he who took sannyas from his a picture of his Guru Maharaj, you have to approach another living sannyasi, just as you have to approach a guru, somebody who's initiated in a sampradaya, to receive diksha. So similarly too, to get sannyas, you have to approach somebody who has sannyas. It's given in that way. It can't be whimsically just given. He decided to turn to Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj, formerly Kunja Bihari, for those of us who know, the leader of the Chaitanya Math in Calcutta. Abhay still thought of Chaitanya Math as the headquarters of his spiritual master's mission, which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had practically made it. During the heated legal disputes, the Chaitanya Math had been the most prized acquisition, and since 1948 it had been under the legal ownership of Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj. Now, although each sannyasi had his own place or places, the Chaitanya mission of Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj legally represented the Gaudiya Math entity. Abhay felt that if he were to take sannyas and go preach in America, he should give Chaitanya Math the first opportunity to support his work. Interesting, it's nice English he uses it. Srila Prabhupada is giving the opportunity to Chaitanya Math to support his preaching work. And actually, they could have gotten the recognition, the glory for Srila Prabhupada's preaching activities. Not only just now, even after Srila Prabhupada came to America, he again reached out to Tirtha Maharaj, asking for help. Not just Tirtha Maharaj, other godbrothers as well, but particularly Tirtha Maharaj he was writing to. He was saying, I can establish a branch of the Chaitanya Mission here in New York. I'll sign it under your name if you simply give me min and if you support me. No response came, nothing. There was nothing whatsoever. And of course later incidents were there, but he was ultimately, despite whatever was there, he was appreciative of Srila Prabhupada's efforts, but unfortunately in the beginning no such support was given, no recognition was given, and we'll get more into it later. So in April 1959, Abhay wrote to Tirtha Maharaj inquiring about sannyas and the Chaitanya Math's printing of some of his manuscripts. And since no one was going abroad, he volunteered to do so on behalf of the Chaitanya Math. Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj replied that Abhay should first join the Chaitanya Math. He mentioned the strife that still lingered. Quote, those who were acting against Chaitanya Math, they were motivated by their individual ambitions. Anyone who was against the Chaitanya Math, he said, was acting illogically and against the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So, according to Tirtha Maharaj, the thing for Abhay to do, the thing he had neglected to do for so many years, was to join the Chaitanya Math and act under his direction. So there's a whole lot of politics behind this, what's going on here. For those of us who know, the succinct version is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he instructed his disciples to form a governing body commission. He didn't use those words, but something like that. A board for managing the Gaudiya mission after his departure. They didn't do so, more or less. They elected one person as chair, as head of the whole mission, and glossing over a lot, eventually two factions were formed, one between Tirtha Maharaj himself and another between another devotee who split away, very prominent disciples. And so the mission became divided between them. More and more among these two groups, so many, particularly one of the groups, so many deviations started to come about, and so many issues started to come up, and thus more and more of Srila Prabhupada's God brothers, they split from these two groups, the Gaudiya Math headed in Mayapur and the Gaudiya Math headed in Kolkata. And so, like this, each group was trying to claim that they're this legitimate successor to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mission. Although practically they had all gone against, at least the prominent ones, had directly gone against his order of establishing a governing committee. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he established as the formal headquarters, or there's two, the one in Mayapur, but illegally the one in Kolkata was the head, this Chaitanya mission was the head. And so Tirtha Maharaj, explaining what he's saying here, legally speaking, all the other branches of the Gaudiya Math were meant to be under him, but that due to strife and disagreement, it wasn't the case. So Tirtha Maharaj is saying here to Srila Prabhupada that if you want to take sannyas, you should get in line with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and work under me, more or less, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would have wanted. So Tirtha Maharaj had mentioned several members of the Chaitanya Math who had recently accepted the sannyas order. And he said that Abhay could also become one in time. He invited Abhay to come reside at the Chaitanya Math. The houses that we have, there are rooms that are airy and well lit. We will treat you exclusively. There won't be any difficulty. We will take care that no inconveniences are caused. But as for printing books, we are eagerly awaiting to print books like Shat Sandarbha Vedanta, based on devotional service, and many other rare books by the Goswamis. First, we will print them. Books written by you will be checked by the editorial staff, and if the funds can be raised, then they can be printed according to priority. The books will be printed only if they are favorable for the service of the Chaitanya Math. Therefore, if the fund is raised, then there is a plan to go abroad as well. So obviously, it's not a very nice situation for Abhay here, Srila Prabhupada. More or less, it becomes to use a strong word, a pawn of the Chaitanya Math. He could take sannyas within the Chaitanya mission if he works under them, if he preaches as they want to preach. And they'll publish his literature once it's been reviewed by their staff, after they've published their own books, with their permission, and if the money can be raised. So basically, it's a whole lot of checklists and terms and conditions they're giving for Srila Prabhupada to take sannyas. So obviously, Abhay was not encouraged. The main difficulty he felt was the Chaitanya Math's shortage of funds. So obviously, again, some background, Chaitanya Math was involved in long, even to at least contemporarily to this, at this time in 1959, ongoing legal disputes that had happened since the breakup of practically shortly after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left this mortal plane. So all of a great deal of the mission's financial assets were gone, sucked into, and continually being sucked into, trying to win this court case in the Indian courts. So they were short of funds, more or less. So Srila Prabhupada, he saw this. He saw they were short on funds. They're short on funds. How are they going to have the funds to print my books? Srila Prabhupada, I was working with my broken typewriter. I went to our Tirtha Maharaj. You give me a room and print my books. Give me some money. I will join you. I thought this is Guru Maharaj's institution. He did not say no, but the printing of books was a difficult task for him. He had no money. He was hardly collecting for maintaining. Printing of books is a big job, and there is no guarantee of sale. So we see Srila Prabhupada's mind. His mind, the whole point of Srila Prabhupada taking sannyas was to preach. If he couldn't print his books with it, what's the point of taking sannyas? If he's imprisoned, more or less, within the Chaitanya Math, which won't print his books, won't give him preaching opportunity, what's the value of such sannyas? As Satsvarup Maharaj elaborates here, without printing books and going to the West, sannyas did not have meaning for Abhay. And who knew when Tirtha Maharaj would sanction his taking of sannyas? So he will give him sannyas, but again, as mentioned, in due course of time, and not immediately. Srila Prabhupada, at this point, he left 69. What is that? 69, he left. I'm just doing some quick math. So Srila Prabhupada is 62 years old at this point. So There's no guarantee. Once once the gray hairs appear on the head, it signs material nature is giving signs that death is approaching. So Srila Prabhupada, he knew he wouldn't have much time. He may leave his body practically before Tirtha Maharaj allows him to take sannyas. And two, who knows if Tirtha Maharaj will even allow him to take sannyas. So there was no point in going to Kolkata just to reside in an airy, well-lit room that he already had in Vrindavan. Abai wrote back to Tirtha Maharaj, mentioning his direct order from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to preach to the English-speaking public. He wanted to go to the west right away, and he had thought that Chaitanya Math would welcome his offer. Both Abai and Tirtha Maharaj had their responsibilities, but perhaps they could work together to carry out the desire of the spiritual master. Abhaya asked Tirtha Maharaj to reconsider. On May 7th, 1959, Tirtha Maharaj wrote back, this is a quote from him, these two paragraphs, "My suggestion is don't make any hasty decisions. For the time being, you stay with us and engage yourself in the service of the society. Then accept Tridanda, sannyas. The purpose of accepting Tridanda is to serve the society. If that is your desire, then Sri Chaitanya Math will decide about your going to America to preach and make all the arrangements. It can never be the principle of the society to let one act according to his individual attempt or desire. The society will decide after consulting with the heads what is to be done by whom. This is what I want to say. First of all, it is necessary to identify oneself with the society." So we see Tirtha Maharaj's mood is not necessarily wrong, so to say. In one sense, as Satsvarup Maharaj points out, Srila Prabhupada, he's trying to do his thing, preach. Tirtha Maharaj, he's trying to do his thing, support and trying to keep together a failing institution, at that point at least. And get more God brothers under his banner. And so like this, it continues on. In order to preach in America or any other foreign country, it is important to have a dignified organization in the background. And secondly, it is necessary to establish oneself in India before going to preach in the foreign countries. Srila Prabhupada proved the opposite of it, actually. Now it is that there are no conferences or meetings in the West as before. Communication is done through the media of television. So there's a little bit left, and we're getting to the climax. Abai could understand the needs and priority of the Chaitanya Math, you could see. But he could not allow them to overrule what he had considered the highest mandate, preaching as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had ordered. Abai offered his services to the leaders of the Chaitanya Math, thinking that he might also see things his way. He thought that with the world's crying need for Krishna consciousness staring them in the face, they might see that this Abai Babu was convinced and enthusiastic, and so they should be sent right away with whatever he required. But they had other opportunities. So Srila Prabhupada, we see he tried to communicate, he tried to cooperate with his God brothers, he tried to cooperate within the institution his spiritual master had found, but he had an instruction, he had the highest mandate, preaching as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had ordered. And so the superseding principle for Srila Prabhupada was that, not just acting on the legal institution within the boundaries of the legal institution that his spiritual master had founded, and that practically didn't resemble, at that point, no longer resemble what actually Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had established. The preaching spirit had long died out by that point. So, Abhay next turned to Keshava Maharaj at Mathura, and Keshava Maharaj told Abhay to take sannyas immediately. After corresponding with Tirtha Maharaj, Abhay had felt some uncertainty about accepting sannyas. And now that he was being encouraged so strongly, he resisted. But Keshava Maharaj was insistent. So Keshava Maharaj, Bhakti Pragya, what's the full? Keshava Maharaj. He was a very strong personality, actually. He's a very exemplary devotee, extremely scholarly and extremely strict as well. And we see, we see his mood. Srila Prabhupada approached him with a desire to take sannyas. Immediately, Keshava Maharaj starts pushing him to take sannyas. And Srila Prabhupada later recalls, I think maybe he'll mention here, but he recalls that Keshava Maharaj was so strong about practically he was forced to take sannyas by Keshava Maharaj. But Srila Prabhupada considered not that Keshava Maharaj was forcing me, my spiritual master was forcing me. I think that's mentioned here later. So, Srila Prabhupada here, he says, I was sitting alone in Vrindavan writing, my godbrother insisted me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, no one can become a preacher. So he insisted. Not that he insisted, practically my spiritual master insisted. He wanted me to become a preacher. So he forced me through this God brother. You accept. So unwillingly, I accepted. It's interesting. Srila Prabhupada is looking to take sannyas. He's trying very hard through the Chaitanya Mat. Then he gets the opportunity, he becomes reluctant, and then he's practically forced by Keshava Maharaj. And then this is the climax of it. Keshavaji Gaudiya mission, that was Keshava Maharaj's split, his own institution he founded, was located in the midst of one of Mathura's downtown bazaars. Its main entrance and arched doorway led into a courtyard open to the sky through a metal grating above. The architecture was similar to that of the Vamsi Gopalaji temple. The atmosphere was secluded as in a monastery. Abai was a familiar, welcome figure here. He had lived here, written and studied in the library here, edited the Gaudiya Patrika, and donated the deity of Lord Chaitanya, who stood on the altar beside the deities of Radha and Krishna. Shri Radha Vinoda Viharaji. But his visit during September of 1959 was not an ordinary one. He entered the mat dressed in white, Abai Babu. But he would soon be leaving dressed in saffron, a Swami. Abai had been living as a renunciate for 9 years. There was no need for him to observe a ceremony or proclaim himself a sadhu by changing to saffron dress. But it was the parampara system that a man take Tridandi sannyas at the end of his life. He was aware of the cheating sannyasis. Even in Vrindavan, he had seen so many so-called sadhus who did not preach but simply spent their days hunting for chapatis. Some swamis of Vrindavan even indulged illicitly in what they had supposedly come here to reject, sex life. Such persons were making a mockery of sannyas. And there were the case Goswamis also, who lived like ordinary householders, running temples as a business to support their families and accepting honor and donations from the public on the false basis of birth. Abhay knew of these abuses of sannyas, but he also knew the real purpose of sannyas. Sannyas was for preaching. Or the morning of September 17th, 1959, in the 50 by 25 foot deity room on the second floor of the Keshavaji Mat, a group of devotees sat before the deities of Radha and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. The deities were colorfully dressed in royal clothing and silver crowns. Radharani's right hand faced palm downward in benediction for the worshipper. At her side, her left hand held a flower for Krishna. Krishna stood like a dancer, placing his right leg in a casual tiptoe pose before his left, placing his long silver flute, which he held gracefully to his red lips. His long black hair reached down past his shoulders, and the garland of marigolds around his neck reached down to his knees. On his right stood the deity of Lord Chaitanya, his right arm raised, left arm at his side, his body straight, feet together. He was a soft golden color, and he had large eyes, a well-formed mouth, and straight black hair down to his shoulders. One level below the deities were pictures of the spiritual masters in disciplic succession: Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gauri Kishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhakti Pragyana Keshava Maharaj. Abai sat on a mat of kusha grass beside the 90-year-old Sanatana, also to receive sannyas that day. Sitting opposite the two candidates, Narayan Maharaj, Keshava Maharaj's disciple, prepared to conduct the ceremony of mantras and offerings of grains and ghee into the fire. Akinchana Krishna Das Babaji, Abai's godbrother, known for sweet singing, played mridanga and sang Vaishnava bhajans. Sitting on a raised asan, His Holiness Keshava Maharaj presided. Since there had been no notices or invitations, only the mat's few residents attended. Narayan Maharaj chanted the required mantras and then sat back silently while Keshava Maharaj lectured. Then, to everyone's surprise, Keshava Maharaj asked Abai to speak. Abai had not expected this. As he looked around at the gathering of devotees, he understood that the common language was Hindi. Only Keshava Maharaj and a few others spoke English, yet he knew he must speak in English. After Abai's speech, each initiate received his sannyas danda, the traditional head-high staff made of 4 bamboo rods bound together and completely enwrapped in saffron cloth. They were given their sannyas garments, 1 piece of saffron color for a dhoti, 1 for a top piece, and 2 strips for underwear, kopans. They also received tulasi neck beads and the sannyas mantra. Keshava Maharaj said that Abai would now be known as Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, and the Sanatan would be Muni Maharaj. After the ceremony, the 2 new sannyasis posed for a photo, standing on either side of their sannyas guru, who sat in a chair. And so there's a pretty famous photo, this here. This is Muni Maharaj on the left here, This is Keshava Maharaj in the center, and this is Srila Prabhupada on the right, with the sannyas danda. Keshava Maharaj didn't impose any strictures on Abhay. He simply encouraged him to go on preaching. Yet, Abhay knew that to become A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami did not merely mean merely that he was giving up family, home, comforts, or business that he had done 5 years ago. Changing from white cloth to saffron cloth, from Abhay Babu to Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj had a special significance. It was the mandate he had required, the irrevocable commitment. Now it was only a matter of time before Bhaktivedanta Swami would travel to the west as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had ordained. This was Bhaktivedanta Swami's realization of his new sannyas status. And so like this, it goes on and the paragraph finishes. So Srila Prabhupada, shortly after this, he returns to Vrindavan in the he returns to Vrindavan and then he begins his different books. I believe Easy Journey to Other Planets, sometime around there. I forget the exact date. And then prominently, he began authorship, writing his Srimad Bhagavatam. Then shortly after leaving he was distributing books in Delhi all the while, actually. After accepting sannyas, struggling to get his books printed, etc., like this. And then coming to the West. So many struggles Srila Prabhupada went through to establish this Krishna consciousness movement in the West. Even from his renouncing a family life to his reluctant, forced, actually, as he says, acceptance of sannyas, to his struggles with his god brothers in terms of, as we're hearing here with Tirtha Maharaj, trying to take sannyas, operate under him, to trying to get something going in India, coming to the West and still trying to get something going the way of his god brothers. And actually he had, speaking of that, there were actually, when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he had one, who was he a disciple of? I forget. A disciple of one of Srila Prabhupada's god brothers, a brahmachari in India. He actually wanted to come to help Srila Prabhupada, but his spiritual master, his Guru Maharaj, he didn't allow the brahmachari to come. So, a very unfortunate situation. Srila Prabhupada, he had funds in India, he had a bank balance, but the Indian government, they wouldn't release the funds to come to America. So many different struggles, practically, as we've recently heard, Srila Prabhupada's appearance day was recently. I'm reading semi-regularly these tributes, Srila Prabhupada's tributes book, and we see that one of the among Srila Prabhupada's amazing, he has so many different amazing qualities, being a perfectly pure devotee, but one of the most amazing qualities of Srila Prabhupada that comes up again and again and again, and that you see Srila Prabhupada's disciples glorify again and again, is the sacrifices, the austerities that Srila Prabhupada went through to actually establish this mission in the West. It is completely inconceivable. Of course, all of his god brothers are completely glorious in all of their own right, but what Srila Prabhupada did, he's like a moon among stars among the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He has no other comparison. So, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to his acceptance of sannyas, all glories to his sacrifices that he underwent to establish this Krishna consciousness movement, and let us continue on. So I can end there and accept any questions, comments, additions people may have. Yes.
They'll be able to hear it. No?
Yeah, that'll go to the stream.
Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Prabhu, yeah, I can do after you.
You're here. You can just say.
I can wait for you, Prabhu. I'll do it after you, okay?
Stop. You just start. I've
Yeah,
called
okay,
you.
yeah.
It's a whole effort to call. Just say, and then I'll say what I need to say. It's not a big deal. Just say.
Okay. So, Mitravan, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, one thing I was noting here is that,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay. So Shankara Ranya, Vishwarup, who took sannyas, uh, there are some accounts who say that he is the sannyasi who actually went and knocked on Nityananda Prabhu's door and spent some time with Harai Pandit and Padmavati and took Nityananda Prabhu as his disciple, as his servant, and took Nityananda Prabhu on pilgrimage. If you read the Chaitanya Bhagavat, over there it's said that a sannyasi came and took Lord Nityananda. Do you remember reading that?
Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember specifically. Anyway, continue. Go on. Finish your point.
Yeah. So it says that some accounts there was Shankararanya, and
Is this the
I
same
don't remember.
sannyasi that Nityananda Prabhu traveled with? Are you saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
This is the sannyasi who came. This is the sannyasi who came, and they also say that in Prabhupada in one purport he writes, I pulled it up, that the so-called death of Vishwarup, he actually merged into Lord Nityananda.
Oh yeah, that's there. That's also there. That comes.
Yeah.
I forget. That comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yeah, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And go on. Sorry.
No, finish your point. I'm just looking something up.
I was going to go on to another point.
Well, there's one thing. It may be difficult with to look it up immediately, but I remember reading in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So this, I haven't heard that regarding Shankara.
No need to ring the bell.
Shankararanya taking Nityananda Prabhu. I remember Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. I'm getting it wrong. I'm sorry. It was either Madhavendra Puri or the spiritual master Padmanabha, I believe, something like that. Spiritual master of
Spiritual master
Madhavendra
of Madhavendra.
Madhavendra Puri.
Padmanabha.
So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gives the. He explains there was either one of these two. There are two different opinions. The Shankararanya, I don't know. I haven't read that, but there are conflicting accounts. Yeah.
Where is that stated? Do you know?
I can try and look it up as
It's in the Chaitanya Bhagavat commentary.
Chaitanya Bhagavat commentary.
I see.
I can try to find a reference for the Shankararanya thing also. But this other point, is that feminism in the Krishna consciousness movement is not just a problem right now. It's also the reason why Prabhupada couldn't establish a center in the League of Devotees. That governor's wife wanted to start this Mahila Shakti Sabha or some feminist insanity, and that's the reason why Prabhupada couldn't establish his movement over there also. So feminism has been a problem even before the Krishna consciousness movement. What to speak of right now, and this Bon Maharaj, he actually wrote a letter to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, explaining to him all the problems that may happen after his demise, and this whole issue and
It actually happened.
whatever he wrote in that he wrote in that letter actually happened. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur rejected that letter and told the disciples to not even let him come for his samadhi. When he enters into samadhi. I was wondering if you have any insight on that.
Any insight? Why? Well, I don't know the specifics of the letter. I would have to see in Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, but I don't know. I don't recall the specific. I know that happened, but the details are necessary in order to give some insight. I don't know. One thing is that presumably that letter was written after Bon Maharaj had returned from India, and already he had he had fallen out of grace with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So already he was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was already kind of wary about him, so to say. So that letter may have just fueled the fire, source, more or less, is my own philosophical speculation.
And this thing about one of the reasons why Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj could keep the Gaudiya Math together in Calcutta, in Chaitanya Saraswati Math, is actually he foresaw all the cases that were going to happen, and he had his son become a lawyer. So his son, being a lawyer, was able to, fight the cases. And in India, law cases go on and on and on. They drag it out.
Mm-hmm.
So because his son was a lawyer, they were not spending money on the lawyer fee, where the other party, being unable to sponsor lawyers anymore, lost the case. Anyway, that's the point.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah. Anyway, Hare Krishna. That's all I had to say.
Or something. I'm hearing, but I'm just looking for this reference, seeing if I can find it.
So, I'm kind of confused about this Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj in Calcutta, because wasn't it that Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj took charge of Mayapur, the place in Mayapur, and that it was, who was this other devotee? Now I suddenly forgot.
Ananta
Ananta
I forget
Vasudev
his
took
sannyasa.
charge of Kolkata, because my memory goes that Ananta Vasudev was the one who sold the printing press at the Kolkata temple to fund the legal expenses. And that, in fact, as far as my knowledge goes, Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj is glorified to have taken, charge of the Mayapur, Gaudiya Math, the Saraswat Gaudiya Math, over Calcutta, and that at least his followers would glorify that. That shows his spiritual, his purity, or something like that.
I don't know the intimate details of that Gaudiya Math split. That's what it's called, the Gaudiya Math in Kolkata.
The split, yeah.
On their website, Gaudiya Mission, it lists their Guru Parampara, Srila Bhakti, obviously Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, next Bhakti Prasad Puri Goswami, who is Ananta Vasudev.
Yeah.
That's the sannyasa. And then they list this is different. They list Bhakti Pradeep Tirtha Goswami.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The current managers of the Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math,
Yeah.
they're
coming from that, yeah.
They're coming from Ananta Vasudev. They
Yeah.
worship Ananta Vasudev as a pure devotee.
I don't know, actually.
And anyways, Prabhupada said Ananta Vasudev did go back to Godhead. So, right now, yes, he is a pure devotee. But the point is that, I'm wondering if maybe Satsarup Maharaj made...
Why don't we describe the Kunja Bihari, Chaitanya Math, which is headquartered in... Yeah, I don't know. Unless there was some sort of...
Maybe that's an
maybe
error.
They have some branch there or something in Kolkata. That's my only understanding.
They might have a branch. That is possible. Although the way Satsarup Maharaj is describing seems to say that, seems to indicate as if that is the Bagh Bazaar. Yeah. That might be an error on Satsarup Maharaj.
It may be an error, yeah.
Satsarup Maharaj
a pretty big...
This is who Vishnu Chitta Prabhu is right. Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj took over Mayapur.
Oh, yeah.
When is that?
Well, Mahotsa is saying that, Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj did take over Mayapur. Yeah, because, anyways, I had a little bit of insight looking into those things, because if you go to Kovur, Rajamandri, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the famous conversation with Ramananda Rai happened, that math is also headed by followers of Bhaktivilas Tirtha. And there they have a whole glorification on Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj that I had read, and they glorify him like this, that he had taken over, Mayapur, and that he is the glorious person who protected Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Samadhi so dear.
Where was this coming?
This is in a glorification of Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj that I remember reading at the Gaudiya Math in Kovur, Rajamandri, where the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai happened. It's one of the places that Bhaktisiddhanta visited and established the footprints of Lord Chaitanya. Footprints of Lord Chaitanya is established also in Sri Rangam, but I don't know, that wasn't established by Saraswati Thakur. I think that was later. He wanted to, but I don't think he went there. Anyways, that's one thing. And this other thing about, did you find out about this?
Yeah, this. So this is,
Chaitanya Bhagavat.
I've zoomed, I've lost. Okay, so yeah, according to others, no, it starts back here. Sri Nityananda Swarup lived as a brahmachari with Sri Lakshmi Patitirtha. So Lakshmi, not Padmanabha, I'm sorry. He had a kamandalu and a brahmachari danda. According to others, Sri Nityananda Prabhu traveled as a brahmachari with Sri Madhavinder Puripad. And so there's two different opinions. If you look
And
up,
this is from which section of Chaitanya Bhagavat?
this is from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Oh God, I'm so zoomed in.
Just go up. You'll see. Just go up. Text 67 of
Madhya-khand 567.
Madhya Kanda 5. Yeah, I mean, this Shankara Aranya thing,
It doesn't
I
seem
think
to make sense.
it's more popular
Yeah.
opinion. I haven't.
But Shankara Aranya, he left for the south specifically, as mentioned when he took sannyas, and is at least within the two main texts. I mean, Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's not a whole lot, and then Chaitanya Bhagavat, it doesn't. There's no information given that he came back up or mentioned like that. Even here, the sannyasi isn't mentioned. It's mentioned in the text of the Bhagavat that only sannyasi. The specific name is just given here by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta opinion. So, Shankara Aranya. I'm not sure.
Well, when acharyas share these opinions, it means both are bona fide.
Yeah.
You know, Prabhupada does this a lot. Like where with the Rakta Varaha and Shweta Varaha, there's a purport in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada says, yeah, you know, this Varaha that you know, here according to the opinion of so and so, you know, I think it was Jiva Goswami, that Shukadeva Goswami combines the descriptions of both Rakta Varaha and Shweta Varaha. But then sometimes Prabhupada would quote contradicting opinions and not try to resolve them.
And sometimes it's like that.
Meaning that it's inconceivable and both opinions are bona fide, and that's that. So in this case, that seems to be it. But again, because Bhaktisiddhanta didn't mention Shankara Aranya, you know, I'm doubtful of that.
Yeah.
Unless of course, we find a bona fide opinion in that regard. I've heard it though, but I haven't found a reference to that. You know, the other thing I wanted to mention was that, you see, Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj's reply, like you mentioned, you know, in many ways you cannot necessarily fault him. Even Prabhupada didn't necessarily fault him for that, meaning he understood why Tirtha Maharaj was saying so. And I'm just thinking how sometimes, you know, what happens in an institution is that it almost sometimes feels that it's far too gone.
Oh, there's a very good
beyond
example. Just like Guru Maharaj quotes this, what is that? Personalization of charisma or something like that. Something like that. Yeah, Max Weber. So it's, of course, that's a little different, but the idea is that the institution just goes on with the idea of maintaining the institution, and the purpose of it is example is going on. Of course, presumably, I'm not a scholar of Gaudiya Math history, but presumably they're doing something other than just fighting in a legal court all day. Presumably something was going on.
they're devotees,
At the least, there was a mutt and hearing and chanting was going on. But the real spirit, you see, was kind of like, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, and here's the difficulty, right? That sometimes some devotees, or maybe even the leaders of some of these institutions, might identify that, yes, this is like it's a chronic problem. And you know, but sometimes it just feels like there's nothing you can do. Institution, you might devote themselves caught in a situation where, in one sense, they don't want to let the institution just run to the ground because it was started by the spiritual master. On the other hand, the institution has become so complicated that it's almost impossible to get it back to what it's supposed to be doing. And then you're caught in this dharma sankata, you know, it's like in this quandary. What do you do? And there's so many devotees like that, even today. And, you know, within Srila Prabhupada's, you know, ISKCON, where this kind of quandary happens, and it almost seems like there's no solution for it.
Yeah, I mean, there is no solution.
It's like an unfortunate situation, and I don't know, it's like, you know, it's like individually you can't do it, but if you leave, then things just get run to the ground.
Just go how I mean, Krishna says in the any spiritual line, in due course of time, inevitably, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, a devotee may establish some, not even necessarily an institution. You see, even on a low level, that a temple may become very prominent because of whatever, a president there, a particular GBC, a particular guru that's there, and then after some time they may go away and the whole thing goes to. You see, gradually, and there's so many different examples in the movement of centers like that. Centers that were, even in America, there's so many examples. Temples that were formerly thriving, there's so many devotees, now they're ghost towns. The deities are taken care of by paid pujaris. Why? Because of course, that's an extreme case and there's other circumstances, but it's almost inevitable that any sort of spiritual line like that, there's always degradation when I speak of institution.
Yeah, it just seems to be the nature of the material world. And it's unfortunate, as everything in the material world is unfortunate. Becoming and trying to enjoy separately is unfortunate. This is also unfortunate. It almost seems, and then sometimes some people, it begs the question, well, why then establish all of these things and systems and things like that, just to see it run to the ground after a couple of, or just see the ship, go aground, as they say. When a ship gets stuck in the ground, the ship becomes wasted, or something like that. But it seems, in the mood of the acharyas, and all this is worth it for the souls that manage to take advantage and go back to Godhead.
Yeah, that's the point. It's just like if you build a boat with the idea of crossing the river, eventually the boat's going to sink, the whole thing's going to merge back into the earth. But as long as it served its purpose for some people, then you can't ferry the whole world across with the boat, but some people can be helped.
Yeah, it's a good example. Yeah, it just seems like that. And even though we often, we quote, Prabhupada quoting Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that, he's like, better to just, sell all the marble in the temple and print books. Bhakti Siddhanta didn't actually do that, meaning acharyas, that shows the mood, but, every acharya stops short of literally just closing the shutter on an institution that by all symptoms seems to be gone.
Even Srila Prabhupada in 1970, when the misconception had entered his society through his godbrothers, one particularly that, and then Srila Prabhupada was just one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples. He was just an ordinary man who happened to be given minimization of Srila Prabhupada, which then turned to treating Srila Prabhupada as God. When he saw this, Srila Prabhupada was so upset that he wanted to leave. He was willing to leave ISKCON wholesale, just completely leave the society and just write his books.
Yeah.
And you see,
But even then, he didn't want to shut ISKCON down. He could have. He didn't try to do that.
Yeah.
Meaning, what I'm just trying to say is that the acharyas, they don't shut an institution down, even though, at least I can't find of any instance of them shutting an institution down, even though, anti-devotional elements have maybe taken over or whatever,
Another such example is, he didn't shut it down, but just, it's coming to my mind, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he established this
Vishwa Vaishnava Rajya
Sabha. Of course, that's an institution very different than what the Gaudiya Math was.
It was more just like a collection of people. It wasn't
a collection
really
of people
very organized.
with some purpose and some goals.
Yeah.
But what that was during the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and what it was after his time.
Right.
What it transformed it.
Right.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was a part of it.
Yeah.
And then he still used those words later on.
Well, he said the Gaudiya Math was the Vishwa Vaishnava Rajya Sabha.
He referred to that. But practically the actual legal thing that was there, he did the same thing. He just left it and did his own thing.
Yeah. That's another interesting observation. Yeah.
So.
Is anything else?
Is sannyas only for Kshatriyas and Brahmanas?
Only for
higher case.
Is it only for Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, or
Oh, definitely not. I mean, like, I mean, Srila Prabhupada, he gave, I mean, it depends how you necessarily mean that. I mean, from caste perspective, obviously not, because Srila Prabhupada gave sannyas to those who had no caste whatsoever outside the caste system. But traditionally, I mean, it's typically it's thought that Shudras don't necessarily take sannyas, although they're not necessarily prohibited from taking sannyas. Be- I mean, in the sense that it's not that like one is condemned to a Shudra life his whole life. In other words, is that, in other words, by what is that? Yata kanchanatam. I'm just forgetting that. By just as bell metal is transformed into gold by touch, by contact with a touchstone, so too one become twice born by Reformation ceremonies. So similarly too, it's possible for anyone to take sannyas technically, but it's not that necessarily a Shudra directly would take to sannyas. Generally, it's mainly Brahmanas who take sannyas, although there are instances of kings also taking sannyas, just as we have in the Bhagavatam, many like, just as Dhritarashtra, and formerly he took sannyas, more or less. He left home under the guidance of Vidura, etc., like that. Yudhishthira Maharaj as well, there are many examples in the Bhagavatam, but directly, typically, no. Although they're not prohibited from that, if they come to the standard.
So, Yudhishthira, Rashtra, they all took Vanaprastha, not sannyas.
Oh, okay, I see.
That in the Varnashram system, only Brahmanas take sannyas. Now, of course, through the practice of devotional service, one may, qualify as a Brahmana, but in general, only Brahmanas take sannyas. Kshatriyas take Vanaprastha. Vaishyas don't even take Vanaprastha. Vaishyas, they're brahmacharis and grahasthas. Shudras don't even do brahmacharis, just grahastha. That's it.
So like the Vaishya stays to take care of what he like during his
Vaishya never leaves home.
days.
Vaishya never leaves home. Example, Nanda Maharaj. There's no instance of him leaving home. Anyways, that's the point.
King Kurukshetra, like the author of Mukunda Maharaj Stotra, is that him?
Yeah.
So he gave up his kingdom, right?
Yeah, but I don't see any instance of him taking sannyas.
He thinks, yeah.
Vanaprastha is allowed. That was your question?
No, I had another question. Prabhu, you, Srila Prabhupada, did he write the Bhagavatam? He wrote probably 3 cantos, right?
First canto in 3
First
parts.
canto. First canto in 3 parts. Was that before he took sannyas or after?
After.
After,
1960,
okay.
1962, 1963 is when they were published.
I see.
So I think Mataji had something. Did your hand go up? Yeah, so I'm sorry, there are a bunch of different questions over there. So oh wow, that's rare.
I was wondering what's is
Other
it
way.
on?
Yeah, yeah.
I was wondering what's the difference between Chaitanya Mat and Gaudiya Mat?
You can simply put, so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, but so formerly the temple in Kolkata is called Gaudiya Mat. The temple in Navadvip, Mayapur, is called Chaitanya Mat. That's like, just as this is Krishna life. So those 2 names are there. Also, it just so happened the institution Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had, that's also referred to as Gaudiya Mat. Informally, it's technically called Gaudiya Mission, but that's kind of the difference, more or less. And then when that institution split, these 2 temples, the one in Kolkata and the one in Mayapur, they became the 2 factions, more or less. So now you hear about Chaitanya Mat, which is its own institution now, and Gaudiya Mat, which is its own institution now, informally. It still carries on as Gaudiya Mission. Is that okay?
So
They're
it's like-
factions. They splintered off, more or less.
Okay.
You could take it. There's technicalities,
For the
but
example,
that's
you
the
have ISKCON,
yeah.
New Vrindavan, you have New Talavan, you have New Badrikashram, but in case there's a split in ISKCON, the New Talavan may go and register itself as New Talavan,
Yeah,
New Vrindavan will go register itself as New Vrindavan, but previously it was all under one banner.
yeah. Previously, yeah. I guess maybe I can succinctly answer it.
Or does it depend more on the vision of the spiritual master for divine caste division, Daiva Varnashram Dharma?
100%. The overriding principle is the order of the spiritual master. Astrology, you don't need so much. I mean, practically none. More or less, even if you take it materially, Varna is based upon guna and karma, more or less your nature and translation. So you don't need astrology to figure out that some people is good, one person is good with his hands, and that to figure out that another person may be intellectually inclined. You can see practically. So that's there, but even then, on the order of the spiritual master, somebody intellectually inclined may be engaged in doing physical labor, if that is the necessity. So, and somebody not so intellectually inclined, if the spiritual master so orders, he may engage him in, I don't know, what he may can do intellectually, some, this or that. Studying the Vedas even, which usually is not traditionally taken for people of lower castes, etc. So, that's kind of like a brief, succinct explanation. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Vishwarup Mahotsav ki jai.
Saying like, while maintaining YouTube live streaming, so that was not